So Lydia and I work together on the Tiger Private Desk, and we thought we'd share our thoughts on the current climate across the private staff world. So to kick things off, Lydia, tell me what private roles you're currently finding are in demand at the moment.
So yes, I mean, one role that we do tend to get the most inquiry for is always housekeepers. That seems to be year round, and I can understand why. That's as many of our clients are ultra high net worth, so they tend to have rather large properties or perhaps multiple properties in various different locations, whether that be across the UK or globally. So we do often see many sort of requirements for housekeepers coming in, and that's because they often, as we see the move between their different properties, we'll see requirements change slightly. So they might need temporary staff to assist with, getting a house ready for them to visit. So, making up all of the beds, stocking all of the fridges, and that could be in addition to their permanent staff that they're year round. So we also see that the housekeeper roles can be very varied in terms of the skills required. So we might see housekeepers that might have cooking skills, laundry skills, that can assist with wardrobe management, packing for trips. So we just really never see a shortage in the demand for housekeepers, and we have some fantastic housekeeper candidates on our books. Alex, how about you? On your side, have there been any particular roles that you're seeing a large demand for at the moment?
So I think this year we've seen a real demand for private PAs, both full-time and part-time. I think obviously there are situations where part-time PAs are really suitable for a family, perhaps if it's just to manage issues for the family, but we've also had an increase in demand for part-time PAs where the principal is perhaps setting up a home office or a new business. And that part-time PA can kind of bridge the gap between the family and the business side. So I think that whole role is changing. And I would also say that quite a few family offices have either moved back to London or are setting up a satellite office in London. So we've seen quite a few principals hiring their sort of core team. So initially they'll come to us looking for an EA that crosses the private and business side. And I think once that core team is in place, they'll then ask to advise on hiring for the wider family office across, admin, finance, HR, and then extending that into the private household for domestic staff. So Lydia, what are you finding is a common ask from current principals when seeking their private staff?
So yes, I'm not sure if it's a reflection of the current financial climate that we're experiencing at the moment, but we are seeing a larger demand for roles that have sort of two elements to them. So it could be a nanny that they would like to assist with some of the PA duties, or perhaps a house manager that can cook. And this is great if the client lets us know that that's what they expect ahead of taking on the candidate, so that we can inform any potential candidates of this before starting the role. And also it can be a real positive to some of our candidates, because I know that they like the fact that they have that variation. But we can see a few issues starting to arise if this hasn't been clearly mapped out to the candidate ahead of starting in that role. So they might be gradually sort of being introduced to do additional duties that they don't feel so comfortable with, which can cause a bit of friction in the workplace, which is not such a good thing. So yeah, I mean, Alex, what are you seeing on your side when it comes to private staff seeking that job satisfaction at the moment?
Yeah, well, of course, with private staff, they've got to expect a high level of flexibility in their roles, and it really will depend on where the principals expect them to work from. But I would say there's always continued demand for a hybrid option, and where possible, families will accommodate this, but it really depends on what's going on in the house. I think other candidates are also focusing on benefits as part of that role, because historically, obviously, private staff don't necessarily get benefits. There isn't, as you say, a formal HR department, so it tends to just be salary only. But I think what we've seen many of the top private PAs who've had great longevity in their role, and particularly during COVID, where they've stayed loyal, that they have been getting bonuses from their principals, and in some cases healthcare. So I think that where there's movement and private PAs moving to other roles, and staff generally are requesting benefits package as part of their overall remuneration package. So Lydia, as summer holidays approach, what differences in the demand of current principals do you expect to see?
So yes, we are drawing closer to the summer holidays. Not that you'd know it with the weather today, but we are starting to see a high demand for temporary staff. Many of our clients tend to relocate for the summer months, so they'll head off to their various villas, perhaps on board their yachts. So this may mean that they might give their permanent UK-based staff some time off during this time frame, and instead they might take on some temporary or contract staff for the summer months. So that could be a travel nanny, maybe a private chef to join them in their villa, or maybe a steward or butler to tend to them, in this villa or on board their yacht, and making sure that they, get that service whenever they're away on their summer holidays. So we do see a bit of a shift for this, and we are sort of sourcing all of our candidates and getting ready so that, our clients are very well looked after on their holidays. And I know on your side, Alex, you have said that you're starting to see some of your clients looking to relocate family offices or perhaps reposition some of their roles. Is that right?
Yeah, so obviously we've helped some family offices move to London, and initially we've placed EAs within those roles. But we continue to advise the office on further hires that they need to take, both for the household and for the office. Generally, they're starting off quite small, so that EA will cross the private and business side, and then it's really up to the principal as to what level of support they require across the household, whether they require house managers, how many domestic staff. But that's something obviously the Tiger private team will advise on, depending on where they're based and how large the household is.
So yes, I guess looking back to those, clients that are based in the UK, we are actually offering a new consultancy service. So that's for those clients of ours that might have a fully staffed property, but are struggling to maintain and manage some of their staff. So here one of our specialist consultants can actually go in and visit the team and then provide an advisory service and, generate a detailed report with some guidance on how to restructure in order to get the best out of their existing team, and, maybe recommend if they sort of make any changes or, do take on any additional support staff. And from there, we can actually also take on the payroll if required. So this ensures that candidates are, actually employed directly by Tiger rather than the principals directly. So that just ensures that, if there was any issue with tax, payments, or, any sort of HR issues at work, and perhaps they don't have a HR team in place like you might in a business support role, we can be that point of contact, which ensures, complete discretion for the principals, and also ensures that, the principals are not disturbed with, any of these smaller matters that we can take care of on their behalf. And we can also ensure that NDAs are signed, and that just gives them that extra bit of support and privacy and discretion, which I know that many of our clients do require.
Yes, definitely. And I think the confidentiality side is so important for our private clients. And, it's important to know that all of our candidates have the relevant experience for their role. But of course, they're also fully reference checked by us and have all their correct documents which have been checked, and DBS checks on file. Thankfully, we've got an in-house compliance team, so they can facilitate the DBS check and run any enhanced check if required for extra comfort, which of course a lot of high net worths and ultra high net worths like to have.